and hello again, everybody, and we welcome you to Dialed In. I'm Thom Brennaman. Now, you probably know the drill by now. We come your way on Mondays and Fridays, twice a week, live on Mondays at 9:15 a.m. right here on Chatterbox Sports, and then later we'll post on the Believe Network. Fridays, we're on both here at Chatterbox and Believe. Here on Chatterbox, we start at noon following Off the Bench. You can join us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports page. You can download us anytime, anywhere, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Dialed In with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. You know, Fridays, we kind of shoot for a big interview. We've had Chip Carey. We've had Chris Myers. We have had Barry Rosner. We've had Justin Williams, sports columnist from The Athletic, talked about the NCAA tournament, the college football playoff. How about that deal, by the way, signed by ESPN? $7.7 billion to have the college football playoff going to 14 teams. We invite you to follow us on X at Thom Brennaman TV, and it's great to have you with us. Well, look, everybody's talking about March Madness, right? And they call it that for a reason. But outside of an upset here, a.k.a. Kentucky, and an upset there, right, most games in this year's first round were rarely competitive. In fact, there were more games decided by 15 points or more in this year's first round than any NCAA tournament ever. So we started with 68 teams, and now we are down to 16 teams. And so everybody's dialed in on what's going to happen here with the Sweet 16. All four number one seeds are still alive. You got Houston. What a game last night. I mean, if you want to talk about Nut Cutter Nation, that game last night, they win in overtime, score 100 points. They had 4 players, starters, foul out. And they're asking guys who rarely play to come in the game, and then those guys hit big free throws down the stretch. It was unbelievable. One of the best games you'll ever see in a win, overtime win, for Houston over Texas A&M. All right, so Houston's still alive. You got Carolina still alive. You got Purdue still alive. And, of course, number one seed defending champion Uconn still alive. The rarity in all this is that all 4 number 2 seeds are still alive. Go back and look at the history of the tournament. It is rare where you'll have more than 2 number 2 seeds in the Sweet 16. We have 2 3 seeds still alive. In fact, there is only one team, ACC tournament champion NC State, that is higher than a number 6 seed left in this tournament. So let's take a look. See where we are here in the Sweet 16. Okay, you start with San Diego. I tell you, San Diego State's playing good. But does anybody look better right now than Uconn? I mean, they are just tearing people up. All right, let's take a look at the rest of these Sweet 16s. We still got them up there, Casey. Good morning, by the way, Case.
Good morning, Tom.
Can I flip over and see those on this screen?
Yeah, they're...
As we walk through these. That's okay. No big deal. No big deal. Just want to make sure we got. Okay. So then on the other side, this is the game you want to watch, is Houston and Duke. Duke is not Duke of the past, but they're still Duke. Houston, best defensive team in the country, arguably, yet they give up 95 in that overtime thriller last night. Okay, you scroll on down. Talked about NC State. I got to tell you, and not because, they're a 11 seed. I got to tell you, have you watched NC State? They've got this dude that weighs about 300 pounds that has ankles about the size of a quarter. This guy is so nimble and moves so well around the basket. That is going to be an interesting game, NC State against Marquette. Illinois, Iowa State. I mean, when you get to the Sweet 16, you're supposed to have great games, right? Illinois is good, really good. And Iowa State is really good. That's going to be, outside of the Houston-Duke game, I think that's the one that I would want to watch if I had to pick any of them. Okay, so we move on down to the bottom of the bracket. Carolina, Alabama. Alabama was lucky to win yesterday against Grand Canyon. If anybody watched that game, I know the final spread was 72-61 in that one, but Alabama was extremely fortunate to win. And then you've got Purdue, and Purdue looks like a number 1 seed this year. They got beat last year in the first round, right? It's all everybody talked about, getting knocked off first game. They look good. I mean, they're demolishing everybody. Now, they've had a break. You know, Utah State beat TCU. I thought TCU was a better team overall during the year. There's no doubt about that. But whoever Purdue's playing, they are manhandling. And Gonzaga, now I know that Kansas was a little bit down. Okay, they were missing a player, McCullers. But, man, oh, man. Gonzaga is playing great. They look like the Gonzaga teams of the past to me. So, you know, and then at the bottom down there, you got Clemson. ACC has looked really good. I think it's interesting. I don't get wrapped up in that whole thing that just because there's only so many teams in one league means it's a better league than another league. Because the Big 12, I think, only has, 2 teams left. And they've been the big conference all year long. Big East has 3 teams left. Who would have thought the ACC has 4 teams left? 4 of the Sweet 16 are in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And then you got Creighton against Tennessee. That is going to be a really good game. I mean, these are some great matchups. Great matchups. All right, anyway, Case, let's get back to the prompter here. All right, so we know that's the story, talking about the NCAA tournament, looking forward to it. All right, and it all begins on Thursday night. UC is still alive in the NIT. The Cats are in the Elite Eight after they steamrolled Bradley at Fifth Third Arena on Saturday. Next will play Indiana State, the team most people felt like should have been in the NCAA tournament that didn't make it. That game will be in Terre Haute on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Ohio State still alive as well. The Buckeyes will host Georgia on Tuesday night. That game starts at 7. A win by those teams, and it's off to the Final Four, Madison Square Garden, in the NIT next weekend. The Lady Buckeyes shocked in round 2 of the women's NCAA tournament by Duke 75-63. Caitlin Clark in Iowa play tonight with a trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. The Hawkeyes will face West Virginia. Now we get to baseball. And we're going to talk a lot about the Reds here in a minute. What do you make? I'd love to hear some feedback on this thing. What do you guys make about this Shohei Ohtani thing? Now, he told everybody yesterday that he is going to speak to the media for the very first time since this bizarro story broke. And you know the story, right? His interpreter comes out, tells ESPN, tells the world in an interview that Ohtani paid off all of his gambling debts. The interpreter had gotten in debt to the tune of $4.5 million. Okay, with an illegal bookie. That's the one thing about this whole story very few people are talking about. We have gambling, it's legal in Ohio. It is illegal in California. How can everything be legal in California except gambling? You can smoke weed walking down the middle of the street in California, and there's no legal gambling. Anyway, a day later, Ohtani's lawyer, this is after the interpreter tells the world that Ohtani paid off his gambling debts. A day later, Ohtani's lawyer says the interpreter stole the money from Ohtani. I tell you, I don't know where this thing goes, but where there is some smoke here, there's some fire. This is not good for Major League Baseball.
No.
In any form or fashion.
You should have seen how upset Reed was on Friday, I think, when the news broke.
Right.
He was very, very passionate about it. I feel bad, to be honest with you. I mean, like, there's just always something in baseball, apparently. There's either some gambling scandal, steroid scandal, just something. And just can't get away from it.
I mean, does anybody really believe this guy stole the money?
No.
And I can understand why Ohtani's lawyers, and again, this is all just speculation, and I hate going down that road, but It seemed like the dude came clean and said, hey, look, I'm the one who screwed up here. My good friend that I've basically been attached at the hip. I mean, him and Ohtani have literally been joined at the hip since 2018 when Ohtani came to the Angels. And, I mean, he had access to Ohtani's account. He can start writing checks and put money on his credit card or whatever it is. Okay, and then you get into the whole thing about he says that, and again, this guy has lied before. Let me say that up front, okay? The interpreter has lied before. He said he graduated from a certain college, which he didn't do, okay? And he is an American, by the way. I mean, he can speak Japanese and he's an interpreter, but he is an American citizen. Not that that means anything here or there. But, so, look, I mean, who can you believe here? We have no reason to distrust Ohtani. I mean, he doesn't talk to the media. He is very uncomfortable talking to the media. He doesn't do press conferences. That's why today is going to be interesting to see. Is he standing in front of his locker? Is he sitting on a podium like some news conference kind of? He doesn't do this stuff. He keeps the press at arm's length at all times, and he's entitled to do so. So now all of a sudden, he's going to get up and speak today. Of course, what baseball wants to know, and what everybody wants to know, this interpreter says he's piled up these $4.5 million of gambling debts on international soccer, the NFL, college football, and the NBA. This entire thing changes if there is one single bet on a Major League Baseball game.
Agreed. I mean, we're all just kind of sitting there, nervous as can be, I guess, waiting for this news to break out. Because if there is just even one baseball bet,
yep, changes everything.
It's game over for him.
And I mean, and then let's just assume, for a second, that he paid off, Ohtani, paid off the gambling debts of this guy, okay? And he didn't know what he was gambling on. But let's just say it's a good friend. He's in some trouble. You're going to bail him out, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's the thing. If that's true, and we assume that for a second because that's what the guy said originally, okay? If that's true, then, what's baseball do? It's an illegal gambler, but they normally go, illegal bookie. They normally go after the bookie instead of the bettors, and they've already arrested the bookie. But now they got to get access to all these kinds of things and what bets were made and so on and so forth. Where did the money come to pay off the $4.5 million? Boy, there are so many layers to this thing, and this is a story that is not going to go away anytime soon. No time soon. No. Okay, the Reds. They are back in Cincinnati from Arizona as spring training has officially ended in Goodyear. Reds lost yesterday to Cleveland 10-7. Hunter Green went 3 innings, allowed a solo home run. Not too bad, but it's 3 innings. Say what you will. The guy can't get 4 and 5 in spring training, and that's what you want your starters to be. Okay, I'll leave that alone for the time being. But Alexis Diaz is the one that I've been talking about since about August of last year. He was awful this entire spring. And again yesterday. Gives up 3 runs in the Cleveland 9th inning, 2 hits and a walk. I mean, this guy has been fabulous in his role as this team's closer. They ran him into the ground by using him too much last year, and that's not his fault. But by all accounts, his velocity is not where it was last year, so far this spring. So, you start looking at, and everybody has talked so much about the injuries to, the position players, and rightfully so, right? McLean. We're going to get into that whole thing at the end of the week because I'm going to be really interested to see what happens now. This second opinion thing, I got some sources on the inside here that are telling me there's something not right about this thing. But until I know for sure, we're going to leave it be. But McLean out, Friedel out, we know that. right? We know all these things. Arroyo, terrible. Marte suspended. Okay, so all this jammed up infield stuff has pretty much been put to bed. That's fine. But here's what concerns me is when you look at the bullpen, and I'm talking about Alexis Diaz. Okay, so you got in the rotation to start the year. You got Montas throwing the opener, pitched really well over the weekend. You got Hunter Green. You got Nick Martinez, who has been just fantastic. You have Andrew Abbott and Graham Ashcraft for now. Nick Lodolo is scheduled to come off the injured list on April the 10th. So somebody in that rotation is out when Lodolo comes back, if he does come back. And we always wonder with him, okay? But you look down in the bullpen, and now all of a sudden you've got all these guys that are hurt that are really important pieces to this team. Your two primary left-handers are both starting the year on the injured list. And the bullpen, until they were running the ground last year, was the single biggest strength of this team for an extended period of time. They were really good. But you've got Mole, who's out with a shoulder, Alex Young, who's out with a back, Ian Jabot, who pitched so well for this team, has been injured all spring long with a forearm. And I don't know what they were going to do with Brandon Williamson, but I can assure you with Mole out and with Young out, the last thing in the world they needed was to have Williamson hurt, because you could have used him in the bullpen. So there's a lot going on here, and opening day is this week. Casey, before we get out of here today, since we're not going to get together again until the end of the week after opening day, your thoughts on the Redlegs?
Thom, I'm nervous about the Redlegs. Very nervous. I don't want to be, but all this entire offseason was about staying healthy. We could just stay healthy. We're going to be fine. And that's not happened. Not one bit. Not one single bit. In fact, it might even be worse than what it was last year. And that's hard to imagine. Luckily, their schedule, I think, is kind of easy to start the year. They play the Nationals, right?
Yep.
They play series with the Nationals.
Yep, to start the year.
And Philadelphia's kind of tough. But then you play the Mets, and I think by then maybe you have some guys start returning, hopefully. That's a big hopeful. I just don't know, though, Thom. I mean, my favorite player, Matt McLain, he being hurt really hurts this team defensively.
Yep.
The center of the field being hurt, like just the entire starting center field.
Yeah, the up the middle.
Completely,
yeah, except for Ellie. Yeah.
And Ellie is spotty. So it's not good.
Well, they do have to just sort of of all the things, like I said, that concerns me the most, this is twofold and they work hand in hand. Okay, we knew coming into the season that based on all the injuries of all of these guys that are in the starting rotation, your opening day starter pitched one game last year. He's looked great this spring, but he pitched one inning all of last year, out with a shoulder injury. You've got Hunter Green, who's been on the injured list at least twice every year since he's come to the big leagues. You've got Graham Ashcraft, injured list every year he's come to the big leagues. You've got Andrew Abbott, who wore down at the end of last season. He was done. That's not his fault. Nick Lodolo, injured list, basically missed all of last season after a handful of starts. So, okay, but are all those guys talented? No question. Unbelievably talented. Could they be good? Could they be great? Yes, we've seen them both at times, but not consistently. But the guys who are supposed to come in behind them as they start this season, you've got three of them that you were really leaning on that are out. Now, I know you brought in Pagan, who's looked very good. You brought in Suter, who's looked very good. But the thing to keep an eye on, the offense is going to score. Encarnacion Strand is going to have a monster year. Monster year. They're going to score. But I am very concerned, regardless of competition level, very concerned about the pitching overall because of past history in terms of injury past history in terms of consistency, and now all of a sudden major injuries in the bullpen, or at least guys that aren't ready to start the year. All right. Case?
Thom?
Have a good day, my man.
You too.
Thank you for everything. We thank all of you for joining us. We'll see you at the end of the week on Friday at high noon. Have a great day and have a great week.